All right, we have Stephanie, we have Ken Biega, we have David Lum, Mary Stone, Alan Shinas, Rick Goulding, Skip Beebe, Russell Learned, Jerry Baker, John Kiker, and absent is Tim Griswold. And we're waiting for BJ. Hopefully he should be getting on so he can jump on when he's ready. Okay, I'd like to get started. Let's take a look at the minutes of February 8th. Please review them. Let me know if there are any additions or corrections. If not, I'll take a motion to accept.
So moved.
So, hi, BJ.
Second.
Okay, I need a second to that, please.
Second.
Dave, okay, David, you're not supposed to do that, right?
Second.
Okay, John. David, I thought ex officio we talked about.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Never
no, that's
mind.
okay.
My
I
bad.
love it that you want to jump in, though. Thank you so much. Okay, John. Okay, BJ and John. And okay, any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Or raising your hand, one or the other. Any nay votes? Any abstentions? All right, motion carried. Next, we have under communications, none from outside of the committee. We will get into further communications later on in the agenda. We don't have any guests, okay, listed on the agenda. Under old business, cost estimate review work update. I will let you know right now that we will receive the latest design development estimate from Point One no later than March 15th. Okay, and when that comes in, that's going to be shot out immediately to all of you and to town officials that need it for review before the March 21st Board of Finance meeting for asking for our biggest chunk of money so far. On the 16th, Alan and I will meet with Point One in the morning to review what they sent us on the 15th and try to do a quick review to see if there's any outstanding issues that we still need to address before the 21st. So that's where, yes. Did somebody say something? Okay, somebody hiccuped. Okay. And that's basically the cost estimate review update for this so far. Okay. I don't have anything under other old business. Does anybody have anything? I don't think so. We can move on. All right, under new business, fasten your seatbelts because I have a long list of things that have happened since we met in February. And I'm just going to go down by date chronologically. On February 13th, Stephanie and I met with David Lum, Tim Griswold, Dominic Scolari, and Matt Weber and Don Bugby from Parks and Rec and from the police force to discuss the gate that we've asked about a couple of years ago now, right, Steph? To see if we could get something done with it. And this was a very successful meeting. Instead of moving the existing gate, everybody has agreed that there will be a new gate installed closer to the road. And actually that work hopefully will be done soon or as soon as possible. And does not necessarily have to wait until we begin construction. And it is not a bill that the building committee will incur. Okay. I'm sorry. Did somebody have a comment?
I think somebody's microphone.
Yeah, that's actually an echo of what you say coming out of somebody else's, for some reason.
Seriously? Okay.
Yeah. It most of the time it doesn't do it. Just go forward.
Okay. All right. On the 16th of February, Alan and I met with a solar vendor that was recommended by Green Bank on their vendor list and met with them for over an hour and a half or so to talk about the possibility of what we might do for solar at the center. to the end of that, the short and long of it is that we can't do anything on the center at this time. The size of the roof does not meet the threshold for a power PPA or a power sharing agreement, and it does not work really well for the sharing part of an agreement that a municipality can do. Alan spent hours and hours and hours researching this, not only for the center, but also for the town of Lyme. At this time, on the 21st of February, Alan and I met with Dave Kelsey, David Lom, and Tim Griswold to go over what we found with this solar discussion, and to update both towns about what can't be done at the center at this time, just realistically, and also what the possibilities are that the municipalities could engage in the future if they decide to do so. Alan, did you want to add anything to
that? We'll go through an exercise for the town of Lyme. We'll use the vendor that we spoke to, one or two or three others as well, and share the power needs for the town of Lyme and the building statuses, and use that as a proxy for whether or not for Lyme and Old Lyme, if they so choose, there's something there to be gained. And I think if that turned out favorable, then I think back on the table is the possibility of sucking the senior center building into that larger infrastructure, and thereby getting that benefit over to the senior center. On their own, with that size roof, be very expensive. You have to put the money out yourself, the $90,000 to build it, and it'd be much better to wrap it into a bigger town-wide deal, whether it's Lyme or Old Lyme. We'll work it out. First, we'll see if the math works for the town of Lyme.
Right, and the town-wide deal basically is this: if there's another larger roof structure that can accommodate a larger display and generate enough that actually there's a program in place now, and hopefully in the future it still will be, that generator can actually share to up to 4 other meters on town buildings. So instead of sending all the power back to the grid. So hopefully that's what we're going to hope to see in the future, but right now solar's off the plate for the center. Okay. On the 22nd of February, Stephanie and I met with Point One, who requested the meeting to ask about program space usage and to listen to some concerns that Stephanie might have. We'll pick up on that later in the meeting about any specific concerns that she may have. On the 28th of February, Alan, Russell, and I prepped together, and Ken, I'm sorry, Ken, you were there too, prepped for the Board of Finance meeting to look at what we might need to do to add to soft costs and to other things that need to be added into the total that we're going to be asking the town to consider. Okay. All right. On March 2nd,
Jared?
Greg Nucci. What? Sorry?
Yeah, we have, looks like 2 different people that want to get in. I don't want to make the same mistake I made the last time. I know you said someone from the public might be on.
I have 2 people that I think are coming in. I know Carol, if there's a Carol Diffley.
The names are not coming up, which is why if you can reach out to them and
They have to identify themselves.
All right, I'll reach out to Carol.
Who's the other person, Stephanie?
I think that Jane was thinking about joining when I talked to her last. I don't know for sure, but that's
okay. We need to move on.
Can I just ask one quick question, John?
Sure.
Is one of them last name Diffley? It might say his name instead.
So no names are coming up.
Okay. If I can, I'll raise my hand if she gets back to me. I just texted her to see if she's there.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thanks.
But right now she's not on, so she's muted, right?
She's not on.
She's not on. Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on while we're waiting for that.
But Jerry, why are we not letting people on? It's a public meeting.
No, it's not that. It's they need to identify themselves because we're doing an electronic meeting. And right now they're on, but they're not identified yet, and they have not identified themselves. So
Mhm.
we're gonna get them on. I mean, Steph, she just needs to get her to do it right to join.
She just needs to confirm that she's in the waiting room.
Yeah, she's in the waiting room. Yeah, and as soon as we're able to identify, and specifically.
Phone number, Carol. Can you hear me? Am I off mute? Oh,
Yes, we can hear you.
okay, Carol is waiting. Does it have a phone number attached to it? If I give you her phone number?
There's no phone number attached to it.
There's no phone number attached to it. Do you want to go out and try to come back in, and when it asks for the
fine.
name, your name?
It's Stephanie, it's fine. If you say she's in the waiting room, I can put her in.
Okay.
Okay?
He's gonna try to, wait. He's gonna try to bring you in. So hold on. Okay.
I need to be able to hear her.
I don't see her in yet, so something just. Let me call her back and tell her to put her
All right,
microphone on.
we're gonna move on, John, while she's doing that, okay?
Okay.
Okay. On March 2nd.
Are you on? Can you hear?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Sorry, I thought I had it muted. Sorry.
Carol? I need to be able to hear her and speak to her, and she needs to reply.
Just tell her, I was getting feedback. She can hear you, so just tell her to unmute herself.
Carol, unmute yourself.
She might not have a microphone, I'm wondering,
Oh,
because I don't even see that next to hers.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, if you can, you're going to need to probably speak up when I get to the point where I ask for public comment. That's the place where you're going to speak, Carol, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, hon. All right. Thanks for coming, okay?
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, on March 2nd, Greg Nucci and I met with Tom Meyer, who is the facilities and IT coordinator for the town of Old Lyme. And we met for a long time with him to talk about how, and to share with him the site plans and also the ability to have him interface with Connecticut Comp, the computer contractor that the Old Lyme is contracted with, to talk about what could be done for IT and camera and security work at the center for the new plant. Bottom line, for IT and security, those are owner responsible items. So I've asked Tom, when he was to speak with Tom Riggio from Connecticut Comp, to please give some kind of estimate to us that what it might cost for the owners to do the IT installation, and also any interface that needed to be done with maybe the alarm system electrically, and also the cameras which is the responsibility for the town under security. I reached out to him today. He still hasn't gotten back to me. He was supposed to meet with Tom Riggio on the 3rd, so I'll just wait to hear from him. And also, Greg Nucci said he would check for some previous projects that might be similar size to see what the IT responsibility was for the owners for those projects. The idea that the electricians can do the drops all over the center, then there are several of them, they can do the drops, but they're not to do the wiring, because IT wiring can be very different, and we don't want an electrician to put in the wrong wiring for IT for the center. That's why that be the owner responsibility. After that meeting, on that morning, I met with Tim Griswold, And I met with him for two reasons. I met with him to talk to him about helping us figure out who to go to in Old Lyme. That would be the guy that he knows for storage possibilities, because we're trying to work up that as part of the soft costs for the proposal to the Board of Finance. And I've been researching things like pods as a commercial entity, but we've pretty much decided that we want side-by-side climate control unit and a non-climate control unit. Steph, we kind of talked originally when you and I talked about storage of maybe having a pod on site, but that's not going to happen because it's too dangerous to do. Okay. But it'll be easier if we go to a drive-in storage facility where you can literally just open the garage door and get what you need. Okay. So that was one thing. The other thing that I talked to him about, because on I think it was on February 16th. Thank you again, David. David Lom forwarded a letter that was from the Department of Aging and Disability Services to both Stephanie and me. They have received a $10 million ARPA grant for the state of Connecticut, specifically for senior centers. And the eligibility for this is very simple to begin with. They are going to take $5,000 for each town, each municipality, and just give each town and municipality $5,000 for their senior center. They also, though, after that, will do a rolling application for additional monies. And as soon as David and Tim Griswold get the form to do that, we are going to jump on it, and we're going to have discussions with Stephanie, Tim, and David and I about how to share the money that's coming down the pike from this source. Okay, because the eligibility to spend this money is either for senior services or facilities, and enhancement of facilities. So we'll get into that discussion when we know we can do that. Okay. During that meeting, he let me know something that I thought was kind of fun and interesting. The day before, he had a long talk with the director of the Estuary Center, and Stan, the director, offered during our shutdown, when we do go to construction, to host our congregate lunches at the Estuary Council in Old Saybrook and provide a bus for transportation for our members to go to and from those luncheons. So when he told me that, he hadn't contacted you yet. Steph, has he contacted you about it? Okay, because I asked him, I said, please call you, ASAP, but I saw him first thing in the morning. So I'm sure he called you after I saw him, because he had found out about it late the day before. Okay. Okay. So that's basically what he and I talked about. Then Devin Carney contacted me to ask me if I would help him work on a bond request form for the House legislative side of the state of Connecticut. And I started working on that form with him, and I was waiting to see when he contacted Tim Griswold about this. And he called me about an hour and a half ago after I sent him the completed form, because his deadline is March 13th to submit this. And I sent him the form with some questions about spaces that needed to be completed that I felt I shouldn't complete. And he said we were fine for the form. He's going to contact First Selectman Griswold because he wasn't sure how much to put in for. And his ranking member on his committee told him to put in for $5 million. So we'll see what happens, but he still has to have the discussion with Tim about this. On March 5th, Sunday, Martha Shoemaker called me and let me know that through Senator Murphy's office, the CDS grant applications, the community development applications were available and were different from previous grant application processes. And this is probably in part or in whole related to either infrastructure money that has come down or through the Inflation Reduction Act that has come down. And what we are going to do, and I've offered to help fill out the forms for this, is to do something hopefully together with the two towns, once Tim and David have a discussion, to put in for a grant that we no longer have to use median household income as a criteria for a grant for this particular pipeline of money. And that's unbelievable. All we have to do is use total population, and both towns fall under the limits for rural population. So this application will go through the Department of Agriculture application process. And I've set up the account and I'm beginning to work on the form. And as soon as everybody gives me a title for the project, I will jump in and do as much as I can. Everybody knows, though, that money-wise, in terms of how much to ask for, we have to wait till the 15th, till we get, or before the 15th, whatever point one gives to us, because I can't put a figure in until I have an estimate that is the latest and greatest. But it will enable us to do one of two things. If this grant application is approved, we can look at the possibility of getting a 55% reimbursement from this pipeline on the project costs. Or, as most grant applications ask, if we can't give you the 55% or the full bucket, what would you live with? And
54.
Huh?
54.
54. Yeah, well, that's a discussion between Tim and David, because this is going to be representing the towns are asking for this grant, not the building committee. I've just offered to help do the grunt work on it, okay? So hopefully we will get a nice chunk of money from this if it's approved, no matter what they give us. Okay?
At the very highest level, and not a long answer, just at the highest level, would it be the total project including soft costs that's eligible, or would it be construction costs? Do you know?
I'm not sure of that yet. I have to
Okay.
ask, and I've got a good resource to ask those questions, but I have a feeling it's just construction costs.
That clarification will be helpful.
Yeah, okay, I will definitely look into that. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I have a feeling once I see the entire application, if they'll let me get past the title, then I'll know more too. I think the questions will be very specific on that too. Okay, construction and soft costs. Okay, let me look. Okay. Right now, the tricky part of this is all of this is due by March 19th. So into the senator's office. So we're kind of under the gun, and Martha's been great about this, and we've got other people I think that are going to help work on this as well. Okay. On the 20th, coming up, for the board of directors, I'm going to give them a presentation of the latest floor plan and dimensional schematic design. I can show you a little bit what I've done. I think this will show up on my camera. I'm not sure. Maybe not. Okay, this is the latest dimensional floor plan, which is what you got in my last email. Okay, and I have color coded it and developed a way for the board members to learn and to be trained about how to actually talk to other members about this plan. Okay, so this is something that we'll go over in a few minutes again, but this is what it looks like. And once I present this to the board of directors. I'm putting this up on the wall in the center, so everybody will have access to it. Okay. I give the board of directors a very detailed update every month of what the building committee is doing. So this will just be a nice addition to that. All right, so getting into that, the email that I sent around 4 o'clock, because it took me a little while to get it from the architects, has that dimensional plan of the center. And what I can tell you right now is that I want to go through the lists that Stephanie has sent to all of us about any possible updates or changes that we need to consider and possibly vote on as a committee. The biggest one is that at the February 22nd meeting, we did decide to ask this group to do just one major change in the floor plan. And that was to take the art room, the new art room that you'll see on the plan, and divide out a space that Stephanie needs that's private with no windows, and that will be available for the services, the personal services, manicures, pedicures, those haircuts, those kinds of services, with a sink in the room. And as of today, after talking to point one at length about adding additional storage, they are thinking of putting shelves and cupboards on the wall of that space as well for storage. So that is one that we need to vote on, because that's kind of a major change in the space. So does anybody have any questions about this before I entertain a motion to accept this change? Okay. So can I have a motion to accept that change?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Second, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Scream.
Aye.
Okay, raise your hand. Great, motion carried. Okay. And as of 9 o'clock this morning, 10 o'clock this morning, I walked through storage issues with point one, and they have come up with some very, very interesting ideas about adding some storage. And if you look at the plan, where the kitchen extension is at this time, there is a large storage area in that area. But I asked if along the walls in the kitchen extension, if shelves and cupboards could be added for the staff there. Okay. And they feel that if they move the door to the large storage area and put it on the wall that goes into the large room, okay, the larger room, the new larger room, okay, that they can close off that wall and there'll be lots of space there to add cupboards and shelves for paper goods, all those things that run along the wall outside the kitchen right now can actually be brought into that space, and that should be helpful. Okay.
Which part, in the hallway or?
The cupboards that are in the hallway, right? They're not going to be in the hallway. They're going to be moved in. A lot of them are going to be moved into that area that is the extension of the kitchen.
Okay.
Okay. So that, though, I went to the center yesterday and kind of looked and peeked in the cupboards and the drawers and stuff. So maybe we can work together to figure out what can be consolidated, because it looked like there were some fairly empty spaces that might not necessarily be I want to give them a better total of what they might need. So maybe you and I can do that together.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think so.
yeah, okay. Now, additionally, in the nooks, in the big hallway that they're going to put in, they have put nooks along the way with glass, remember? And so that people can look in to the rooms while they're walking through the hallway to see what's going on in the room. Well, those nooks have walls on each side. So that's a place where two things can happen. Stuff can be displayed in the nooks, but also they've suggested in the lower half of those walls, adding shelves or cupboards so that things can be stored there as well. Okay. This
So
speaks
would they
to,
be closed cupboards? I'm sorry. Would
yeah,
they be-
they can be closed cupboards, or they can also do shelves and cupboards. So that way, all the paper goods that you were concerned about, all the things that the kitchen might need, will be available on two sides of the kitchen, okay? On the hallway side and on the extension side, so that everybody has access to plates or anything that's needed in the kitchen area, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But there will still be display space in those nooks for plaques or other things that we've talked about originally. Now, also for display space, all along that new corridor, wherever you see a wall along that corridor is good display space.
can you, I'm not understanding, and which corridor are you talking about?
The big corridor, the one that's going to run L shape into the, that we thought, the one that comes, when you come in the door, you're going to go straight through, or you're going to hang on
Yeah.
left. But that big L-shaped corridor, there is a ton of wall space along that corridor for art display.
Okay, so the one that's going down to where our offices are now, not later, like where it goes that direction, like towards the craft room?
Yeah, toward the craft room, and then toward the back.
Wait, was not?
There'll be plenty of space.
Really? Yeah, she told me like.
Excuse me, who's this?
Got a massive rash down there, which I'm probably going to do, sorry, my own.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Rick. You need to jump off?
No, he just didn't know he wasn't on mute, I think.
Okay, all right, yeah, so there'll be a lot of display space for art, okay, along those walls, okay? All right, let's see what else we got. Closet, I asked your staff this morning to send me what point one requested. They need specs on those carts that you're ordering.
Yeah, I couldn't get to it today, Jerry. I will get that. I had written you back, but I'll get that for you I'm hoping to have it by the end of the week. I've been slammed. It's been slammed at the center, so.
Oh, okay, all right,
I will
okay.
do that by the end of this week.
Okay, okay, so because they can't do anything until they have more information.
I know. I will do my best to get it by the end of the week.
Okay.
My best.
Okay. Looking at the two lists that you sent to this committee, and I forwarded on to the committee from your email, all the closets are going to be addressed, but there's a concern about how much stuff actually needs to go into some of the closets that are personal belongings of people, like yoga mats and things that could take up a lot of space. So you maybe want to just rethink a little bit about.
Well, we were actually thinking of having some at the center. Like it would be ones that could be used by everybody. You know what I mean? It's always good to keep a few yoga mats because somebody will show up inadvertently without one. So we have them there,
Okay. Okay.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, okay, but okay, we can talk about that. That's detail. Okay, that can come down. But know this: they are looking for the information they need so that they can seriously look at the large spaces that are needed for the tables and chairs. Okay,
yeah,
that's the biggest concern right now.
Okay.
Okay, so that list on closets, we can go down to the additional list after the meeting. There will be a coat closet that will be available for up to 30 coats, okay? That will be inside the entrance, the new entrance. But also the recommendation is that there will be no space in that closet for people to leave things like purses. Okay. Anything that's valuable, I don't think anybody should leave in a closet anywhere. Okay. So
Can I say something about the closet? So they're moving it from the vestibule? Is that what I understand?
it's not inside the vestibule. Right now, that space is still a space that can be worked on and needs to be worked out a little bit more because you asked for some other things to be moved, like you wanted the IT closet to be created, the AV IT closet. They've created that. Okay. So they have moved the display for computer check-in down the hall a little bit
But
more.
where is the closet still in the vestibule, or is it somewhere else they're trying to find where to
It's
put
going to
it?
be near. It's going to be somewhere near the vestibule.
Okay.
Vestibule. Okay.
Can I chime in for a second, or would you rather just about the closet?
I think what I want to do is I want to get through the list that you sent initially, and then you can do whatever you want to do afterwards. Okay.
Okay, then I can just talk about it then. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, check-in station, like I said, is going to be moved down, further down the hall, so that there will be no queue backup, okay?
Good.
Bookcases in the library will be determined by the need for the library, and we will figure that out. But the question was, how many puzzles do you really think should be in a library space where books are primarily what need to be used? So we'll figure that out, okay? Okay. Display areas, I just mentioned. Water fountain, I agree with you. You know, like just keep what we got because that's a really cool thing to have in the center.
Mhm.
You know, instead of a water fountain that would squirt water all over the place. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm just waiting for the AED response where that's going to be. My suggestion is either outside your offices or in a central location within the space in the building. Russell, do you have a take on anything like that? Like an AED, you know, like we have a defibrillator, it needs to be charged and it's on our wall now inside the big space. Should it stay in a big space or should it stay near where the nurse and the staff are in case they need to?
It probably should be in the big space, though. That said, there are rules now that specifically locate those. So we need to just double check with that. They used to be a little more up to the user and the owner, but they're actually now, there are some, I don't know if they're rules in as much as they're best practices.
Best practices.
But you should have one where the people are. So, you know, you might decide to have two, but definitely one in the big space.
Okay, I will.
It's like we're a fire extinguisher. You know, when you need it, they need to be there. Yeah, Rick
Yeah,
probably has a
that's
good
most
sense of
of the
that.
That's where you're going to do most of your programs too. So.
Yeah. Okay. When Greg Nucci gets back from his vacation, I'll ask him because I'm sure that's probably already been factored into the electrical.
I think Rick had a thing to say on that. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to say the most important thing is that it's recognizable to the public. I mean, anyone who works there is going to know where it is. And to be honest, an extra 20 steps there and back to a patient, if it happens in the nurse's office versus out in the open, isn't going to be the rate limiting step. Is not the access to the equipment. It's getting it applied to the patient. So it might be an extra 20 seconds by the time you add up those extra steps. But again, having it in that visible light. And usually you want to have it where you have other emergency equipment too. So kind of everyone knows if there's a problem, a fire or anything else, it's all in one centrally located wall.
Yeah, like we have it now. Like we have it now.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Okay. The coffee corner is going to be in the Greeter Cafe. Okay. It's good. So that's where the coffee pots will be at this point, if we need to move them back into the kitchen. But I did ask point one to make sure they preserve Vi's coffee corner somehow. Okay, Steph, because that was a legacy gift and it should still be visible to everybody who comes into the building. Okay, how do you feel about that?
I agree.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I agree. I think we should, if it can do it without destroying it, if it's gonna destroy
Oh,
it.
yeah, well, my husband's gonna want to do it have it done without it being destroyed since he spent all day installing it.
Oh, no, I agree. I just took my own cabinets out and there were no saving them.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
wanted to.
Yeah, you get
Yeah.
it. Okay. Also the last thing, let's table the discussion about furniture and everything till when we get to it, because it's just a little too soon. I know you're thinking about what your office space is going to be like, and it's a good thing to do, but we really can't figure that out quite yet until we get to the FF&E part of the plan, okay? But not to worry, you're going to get what you need, okay?
No?
All right, now, you did send an additional email since that
Yep.
list that has 5 more items on it, and we've talked about storage space, item number 5.
Right.
And we can still continue that discussion later, at a later date. The elimination of the small dining room. That was in the kitchen extension. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, can I tell you a little bit about it? Because I sent some stuff today that people may have looked at. Today, Caitlin and I measured out the space. So let me just back up just a minute and talk about this. When we were trying to decide which one to go with, myself and I know others voted for the smaller version because we had an intimate dining room where people could eat. And if I had known it was going to be taken away, then I would never have signed up for that, because what happened is the original plan that we had room for 20 people to be in it. If you happen to look at the pictures that I sent these a weird picture of 2 tables that were turned over on their side. And that was just to signify the size of that room. It's literally a glorified walkway. There's the pictures with the table, there's only enough to put in there's only enough to serve at most 8, 9 people. And
Okay,
that's
I have to butt in. I have to butt in because I really need to go with you and look at the space. Okay, it's very
That's fine.
difficult.
I would still like to talk about it because I've done a lot of work on it. So if I can just continue for a few minutes, and then just so we can all be aware of what's happening. Point 1 did say to us when we were in that meeting that was no longer available to have really tables in there because it's just like a walkthrough. So what I had sent and had mentioned to point 1 is that instead an idea, because I don't want to get this building built and then find out we've already outgrown it by far. And I know at this point, we've already outgrown that area. And if we move those particular closets that are in that room somewhere else, they could go on the other end, possibly where the porch is, because we don't really need a covered porch, and open up that and bump that out to the other part of that medium room, and we could fit 30 people in there and do lunches. What's happening is now our medium room is going to have to be dedicated to serving lunch in it, and it's for 25 to 30 people from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And so now we've lost the use of our medium room because we no longer have the dining room. So that's a big concern for me. And I know that this is like late in the game, but they added the sprinkler system and they moved the closet. So now we don't even have room to put 20 people in that room. We originally were going to put 20 people in. And I didn't even know it because we didn't have the updated plans when we met with the architects until I got the one that I sent to you guys. And then and they said, we just don't even have that room anymore. So my concern is that was a really big selling feature for a lot of us, to have that small intimate dining room that is no longer available. And I just wish there was something we could do at this point to bring that room bigger, since we haven't built it yet, bring it bigger, just so it goes even with the other room that's jet out, and then take out those closets there, or put them somewhere else, and just do a perfect square. So that's, that's something that we can talk about, and but I at the very least, I'm talking about the concern of it, because now we no longer have the use of that room. It's just going to be somewhere where you store dishes and you get to the closets and you walk through, and it makes
Okay.
more steps for the
Okay.
dining people to do.
Okay. At that meeting on the 22nd, we talked about the need to have, you talked about the need to have a permanent space for the congregate lunches to accommodate up to 30 people at this point. It was agreed at that meeting that putting the tables where they are now, which would be on the inside of the new hall, into the large space, was the only viable solution at this point. Now, that kitchen extension, the adding the tables for whatever intimate dining experience, I remember more that was also the reason behind that was to offer classes possibly as well for cooking. And we can't do that now because Ledge Light has said we can't do that. Okay.
No, but I understand.
Let me finish stuff. You had your moment. Okay. And this, so now that we can't do that, that space is now available for the kitchen staff to extend for prep work or anything that they need to do. But since I'm going to tell you, somebody, Russell, jump in for this with me, or somebody, changing the square footage and adding square footage is not in the plan at this point. Okay, adding square footage. Also, that covered porch and the idea of they did tell you at this 22nd meeting that that porch is going to stay there for egress. Okay, you want to put closets and just put a door there, it may not be the best way to get people out of the building or into the building or being able to just actually use that space. So if you
Actually,
have
I don't remember that
can I
conversation.
finish, please? If you have any further concern about it, then we will get together at the center and let's walk through the space so that we can get a better idea of what you're talking about. Because frankly, I'm a little confused right now. So
I would
I don't understand the
hold on,
confusion.
Russell. I asked Russell if he had a comment.
Well, I think if the sprinkler room is kind of the gauge there, they have to have a certain distance.
They have to have it.
They have to have it somewhere in that area. Now, if you guys are able to give up some of that storage, or find a place for it elsewhere, perhaps there's a way to take the sprinkler room and push it up to the outdoor storage there and have it only access from the inside, and then get rid of the bigger closet below to square off that room a little bit more. But that's gonna, I would suggest not expanding the building anymore, obviously, but if we can give up some of the storage rooms in there and that allows you to get the space you need, that would be option one. But again, it's the sprinkler room has to be in somewhere, is going to take a little chunk of that corner of that room no matter what. So
yeah.
but
they have to build that to code, right?
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
it has to
So,
be a built code.
but
Yeah.
that's a 0.1 conversation.
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
will have
I
that.
think- And I'll jump in real quick and just add to
Excuse me,
that
Rick.
same.
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
sorry.
Rick. No, it's okay.
Sorry, Rick talking. Obviously this is where the rehab versus new build comes into play, right? These are discussions that you have when you're playing with an existing footprint, because once you try to go out and expand square footage, it changes costs and a lot of different things. But I do think that the one thing that we should make sure as we look at those spaces, and again, I'm trying to think about it in my head as I look back at the blueprints, is to make sure that, as we've always discussed, that all the spaces universal are flexible and allow different activities to happen at different times. And so the one thing I would want to just make sure is that if we're bumping out sprinklers or doing other things that are invading that space, that it's not taking away flexibility of space, that all of a sudden we're making one space become limited in what it can and can't do, such that it prevents us from having an excellent larger square footage that allows us to do different activities simultaneously.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right,
Jerry,
yes, BJ.
it does make sense to me that we don't want to expand the overall square footage of the building, but I would like to hear a little discussion of the pros and cons of having a dedicated lunchroom as opposed to using a part of the medium multipurpose room for lunch. In other words, as I sit here, I mean, it intuitively seems to make little sense to me that it would be good to have a dedicated lunchroom, but I haven't been privy to conversations of the pros and cons. So that, in other words, I know that you have offered to look with Stephanie to see if you can find space for it, but maybe the building committee ought to kind of chime in on whether they think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. And the other side of that is that discussion was done. I'll get to Mary in a second, on the 22nd of February. So I need to be able to clearly state to the architects from the building committee what the needs are. Because I walked out of that meeting thinking that you agreed, Stephanie, that what we came up with the plan at the 22nd was agreed to with the architects at this point. All right, so if that, no, don't shake your head, because that's what happened. There were 4 of us in the room with you, okay?
I did not agree to it. Yeah, I was told that's what we had to do. That wasn't an agreement.
No,
You know, when the builders say they can't do it or whatever, then that's not an agreement. I'm
okay, all right. Let's table
heard
this.
to them because,
Let's table this.
all right,
for
can I
discussion with
continue
point
on my
one.
concerns? Can I continue on the concern list?
I am looking at it and I'm taking care of reading it.
Well, I'd actually like to just chime in because you
Excuse
told me that
I'd like to run the meeting, please. Thank you.
this
Okay,
is
hold on.
me-
Steph,
this is the
Hold
new
on.
business I asked you to put on the
hold
agenda.
on. Mary had her hand up. I want her to be able to speak. Okay? Yes, Mary. Mary, are you?
So you asked the building committee, Jerry, to express whether or not the small dining room was important. And on our visit to the Madison Senior Center, we remarked on how well their dining room was laid out and how well it worked for them. And on our return, Alan showed me on the plan where we had a small dining room. And the reason I think this is so important is because our program of feeding seniors lunch 3 times a week seems to be growing, and this seems to be a growing need. So
Okay.
I do feel that our floor plan has to be adjusted in order to make that a reality.
Okay, thank you. And Madison's dining room seats about 50 people, not 30 or more. That was a large room. Okay. So I'm not sure that we can compare that. But Steph, we will revisit this. Okay.
I know, but I still have other concerns that I listed. When I asked you to put me on the agenda, this is the one thing that's been hard for me, is I don't speak up because I get cut off. And I feel like I'm there 35 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. And there's concerns that I have that I'm not able to express because I get cut off. So when I express them to the architects, I get told I'm going out of phase, but I can't even express them with the building committee. So I would
Okay.
like to just get through my list, and then you can say, forget it, we're not going to do any of it. And that's fine. I just want to be able to, I'm supposed to be representing the seniors and what they need. And I don't get a chance to say much because I get stopped in the middle.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm looking at your list and I'm going down the list as I'm looking at it. Okay.
But I would feel better if I could, because there's things you've already talked about that you told me I could talk about later in the meeting, and you haven't given me that chance. So you're not going to get everything.
Stephanie, if you look at the agenda, you have the space. It's called building concerns and it's for you alone. Okay.
I thought that's where we were.
I am working on the list that you have sent to us so far. So when we get to that part of the agenda, you're free to express what you need
Okay.
to express, okay? All
Okay.
right. The dining room will come back and revisit. The attic ladder issue, as of today, I've asked Point One to revisit that to see if they can do something better with a ladder and access to that space. They will do that, okay? The shed issue. Mary, you sent me an email and asked me about the sheds, and then Steph, you sent me an email and asked me about the sheds in this one. So I am going to tell you what happened after the meeting we had with you, Stephanie. I asked the 3 architects to go out back and look at the 2 sheds and tell me whether or not they could be successfully moved. The larger shed, which is our shed for the center, they feel that once it's emptied out, it could probably be successfully moved. Both sheds are scheduled to be moved further back to the property line, according to the plan. The VFW shed, though, is pretty decayed on its base, and it may not survive a move. Okay, but that's the status of it at this time. And that's what I expressed to you, Mary, when I responded to your email about this. And that's what I'm telling you now, okay?
So is there no discussion on adding money into the budget if it breaks? Because I don't know if you took them inside, but it's literally falling apart in the inside. You know, that I mean, I just want to make sure that if it breaks, we have somewhere to put everything. And like, if
Right.
we don't, then we're going to be screwed.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll need to take a sec. We'll need to take a look at the inside and see. Well, the whole idea was whether or not the question came up during that meeting if the sheds could be moved. So that's what they looked at. They didn't go inside the shed to see what the condition was inside or to see everything that's in there. So we'll revisit the shed issue. The 4th item, the need for solid walls and mirrored walls for exercise. And I would add that you asked about exercise and dance classes. Okay, not just exercise.
Right.
All right, so I want to open that question up to everybody else on the committee. My feeling at this stage of the game where this is this late into the plan, and I'm going to be going in less than 2 weeks to ask for millions of dollars from the towns, that this is mirrored walls can be something that can be delayed. And my concern, frankly, at this point is just getting the walls done. And Point One's concern is getting the soundproofing and the stability of the partitions done in the plan. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, and I'm opening that up for any other comment.
I have a comment.
Mary first. Thank you.
Okay.
Mary, unmute yourself, hon.
So my thought about this is that some of this is easy to do as part of what we're already doing, and it doesn't entail a large additional expense. Some of our movable partitions, if we keep the same level of quality, will function as hard surfaces to which mirrors can be mounted, or they can serve as the hard surfaces for people doing wall exercises. Other stuff, you know, might entail additional expense. So where we can accommodate those needs without increasing our budget, I say, just keep a mindful eye when the value engineering goes on, that you don't choose a flimsier product that won't serve multiple needs.
Okay. Anybody else? Ken or Russell, do you want to chime in on this from building perspective?
I would like to chime in. because I was gonna say, we talked to the architects and they did say that if we used a certain kind of soundproofing wall, that we could use that as a solid wall to do exercises against, because that's what we're looking for, to be able to do that. And they also said that we could do a mirrored thing on on one of the walls that went in and out, because if they get the sturdiest one. So I reiterate what Mary's saying, in the fact that all I wanted to say with that is to make sure that we didn't go with the cheaper one that wouldn't accommodate that.
Jerry, you're on mute. Hey, Jerry, you're on mute. Jerry, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. You're on mute again.
You're on mute again.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, all right. The architects did agree on the February 22nd meeting that the walls and the partitions that would go in would be solid enough to do wall exercises, Mary, okay? Be assured of that. The mirror question is something that I think we should discuss as a committee as an add-on or something down the road at this point, not necessarily something that is part of this original plan and initial plan. Let's have it open for discussion with anybody who wants to talk about it. Does anybody want to make a comment about it besides me, which I don't think we need in this plan right now until we actually know what kind of walls we're going to get and what kind of walls we're going to be able to have. Mirrors can always be added later. Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts? Steph?
The only thing I just want to say again is, we can add the mirrors later, but there won't be a wall space for it. It's going to have to go on the walls that are expandable. And so we should know that going into it, that we want to be able to add that in and get the right kind of expandable walls.
That can be thought of later. Okay, that can be thought of later. Okay, can we move on? All right, that to me are the list that you sent to the committee. So I am going to say at this point that you are on the agenda now for whatever else you feel that you need to bring that you haven't notified us about yet.
Just a little bit more about the coat closet.
Mhm.
I really think we need to find another location for it, because when it's in the vestibule, that people are going to get backed up. Like, for instance, we have, 80 people coming for St. Patrick's Day lunch, and everybody would go and stop to take their coat off and put it in, and it would block up the entranceway. I almost think we need to find another place near the front, but not right in the vestibule, because I worry about that.
Okay, all right, that's something we can talk about with the architects, but there's also the other reality that not everybody's going to leave their coat in the coat closet who comes in the door. Okay, and once the coat closet gets full, they'll have to just keep their coats with them, and that's something that is just a normal function of any space. So let's just keep that in mind, but it's a question to ask. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, two other things. One, the puzzle in the lending library, we need a small bookcase like we have currently, because not only do people do them, and I think that'll be the place they end up doing puzzles, but people will need to be able to borrow them. So I really do think we should have a small shelf like we do now in the library.
Yeah,
where that.
something small is great. And then, yeah, okay, we can figure that out. Okay,
The
anything
other, the last thing that I have is the remove, when we met on the 22nd,
You're muted.
one of the things that I shouldn't be muted. Can you
You're
guys hear
muted,
me?
Yeah, you're,
Is that better?
yeah, it's better.
Okay, I had the papers on there. I think that's what did it. We talked in the meeting about the nurse's office and how we want it to be able to function for everything, not just for the nurse, but when she's not there, we can use it for like volunteers and stuff like that. So I asked the architects, because according to what they need to do to make rooms, they need to put a sink in it. But the nurse has told me there's, you know, she's not a nurse that does any treatment. She's not a nurse that does medication. She just does blood pressures. She doesn't need a sink, and she doesn't really care if she has one. So, but it is a requirement for the nurse's office to have one for them to build, but we can decide where we want the sink to be. So in other words, when we thought about the service room, which I think we still have to agree on, if we have the service room, we have a sink in there, and they can mark that as the nurse's office. However, it will really be one of the flex offices, will be her office. We just won't have to put a sink in there.
We've already voted in the service room, and we've already said there's going to be a sink in it.
No, in the service room, but not in the office.
But Rick, I'm going to ask Rick. My concern about leaving a sink in the nurse's office is that, and since I go to get my blood pressure checked and listen to everybody, what they talk about with the nurse out in the open space where she's doing blood pressure checks now, she does more than just blood pressure checks. She gives advice. She does a lot more. And
no, I just mean as far as the use of a sink.
I'm not done.
Sorry.
And my thought is, if she has somebody in her office and they throw up, or something happens in that office while she has a client in her office, she needs a sink. Okay? I mean, you cannot predict what's going to happen in that space where she might need to wash her hands or actually have to clean up something that could happen. Rick, can you chime in on that for me? Am I wrong about that?
Jerry, I don't believe. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yep. I was just going to say, the vicinity of the sink. I mean, I look at our emergency room right now, and we have patients up and down the hallway, and we have some rooms that are with and without sinks. There's no question, obviously, ideally, if you, depending on the types of services that are being administered, a water source is great. At the same time, as long as there's a nearby water source, if it's, leaning over to grab it on the other side of the room versus 10 feet away in another room. I think it's a little bit different when the only sink that's accessible is, across the building, towards the kitchen or something.
The building. This would be across.
No, actually, it's right next door. Right next door is a bathroom, so it's not. It's right next door to the bathroom.
No. The idea is to have a space that the nurse can use without having to go into the bathroom to use the sink.
No, but I think.
Steph, she's getting a sink. Okay.
Okay, well, that's your decision. It's not everybody's. That's the part I don't understand. Why is it your decision she's going to have a sink when the architect said it was no problem? Rick just said if it's nearby, it's fine, because she's just doing blood pressure checks and giving advice. She's not.
Rick's quote was, it has to meet code, but he doesn't care where we decide where code meets. Okay. If we wanted the sink in the service room, then after that, it's up to us whether or not that meets code for whatever has to happen with the nurse. But I'm going to tell you, I really think we have to respect any nurse that's in that building for any reason over time. You don't know if in the future there will be more things that the nurse might be doing. And a small sink in her office is not a big deal. The plumbing is already there, okay? And I think we just need to respect the profession. And I know that you have had discussions with Denise, but she feels pressured by that to say no to you, okay? I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to say, as the chair of this committee, and I want anybody else to chime in, that the nurse is going to get what she deserves, what she needs for HIPAA, what she needs for ADA, what she needs to do her job, no matter if it's Denise or anybody else that comes into that building. Okay. Does anybody disagree with that?
I think the way you phrased it wasn't right, but I'm gonna let it go. If that's your decision, that's your decision. I just,
asking
that is that's not what she said to me, and
Stephanie,
Denise and
I'm
I are very close.
You were not at a meeting where we actually ended up having a discussion, the initial discussion about what the nurse would need to be compliant with HIPAA and everything else. So, BJ, I am asking the
I don't
committee
think this
if
is,
anybody has a problem with what I just said. Yeah,
I don't think this
not my decision.
that we need to spend more time on this. The sink is
Yeah.
not very expensive, can't hurt, may help, doesn't take up much room. Let's just have a sink.
Yeah, there's no issue. Does anybody feel that it's an issue? All right. Steph, it's not just me. This is the committee speaking. Okay. Do you have anything else, Stephanie?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So can we come back to the agenda? Public comment. Carol, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Not very well. You're going to have to really speak up, hon, okay?
Yes, I am still here.
Okay. This is public comment. So if you have a comment that you'd like to make to the committee, we can entertain the acceptance of the comment, but we don't necessarily have to respond or act on it by public comment law, okay?
Absolutely.
So okay, do you have something that you'd like to say?
Yes, I would. I am not entirely clear as to where the dining area is going to be, but in the meantime, I want to indicate that, or to keep in mind that access to the dining area, to bring food to the congregants and to clean the table has to be as easy as possible to navigate, not to go around counters and multiple doors. It has to be done in a timely manner to ensure that the food has to be served warm for everybody, and to make sure that if at all possible, to dedicate the dining room as such will allow us to set permanent tables, move them, but not as frequently as we need to do right now. If the dining area or that room that would be dedicated for the cafe is to be shared with other activity, we need the volunteers to move the tables and chairs and always reshuffle everything, which is very cumbersome and time consuming. So not to mention the intimacy that a private room would give. It would ease also into the cleanup of the area when we need to clean the dishes. And so these factors become very important for the efficiency and the safety of the food delivery and for our volunteers. The more we ask them to walk with plates in their hands, accidents will happen, spills will occur, falls will occur. This is all that I would like us to consider, or you to consider rather, when choosing the most appropriate space for them.
Okay, okay, thanks, Carol. By the way, everybody, Carol Diffley is our unbelievably tremendous kitchen manager who does our congregate lunches through the Estuary Council and does Meals on Wheels and does our Grab and Go program as well. And I appreciate your comment and thank you very much for it, okay?
Thank you for the opportunity.
And
to speak.
Carol, I'm going to offer to come down and walk you through space so that we can see, so you get a clearer idea of what might be able to happen, okay?
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody else with from? Okay, is there anything anybody else would like to bring up before I entertain adjournment? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Anybody unmute? Raise your hand.
Jerry, I was trying to respond to when you asked if anyone had anything else to mention before you asked for the motion for adjournment. Could I make
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry, hon, I didn't see your hand. What's up?
So I'm still concerned. I realize at this point, our options may be very limited, but and Stephanie hasn't mentioned this because her concerns are all about the programming, but I'm concerned with the staff who work in the building as well as those of us who use the building. And the fact that the offices are all shrinking in size is a concern. And I realize we can get a few square feet from smaller size furniture, which we may or may not end up having in the budget. But Stephanie does a lot of social service work in addition to running our senior center. She helps families of seniors find resources when they have a family member who is in trouble. And this is a very valuable service for our town. And currently she has just barely enough room to pull 3 family members into her office and counsel them privately. But in her new office, which is substantially smaller, she will not have that room. And there are many other functions such as copying equipment and other equipment that it's going to be very difficult to squeeze in. So I just want to express for the record, even if nothing can be done about it, the fact that the staff offices are all shrinking in size, and this is going to impact how the staff works in them. And I just wanted to make that comment part of the record.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion to adjourn. John, you made the motion. I need a second. Anybody left? Mary, you feel like seconding a motion?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? No, we don't have to discuss a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? We're gone. Okay. Have a good evening, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.